Hey everybody, and welcome to the Exit Is Now podcast. I'm here with our friend Joe Seetoo. I think a name that is well known in our exit planning community. We are here live at the Exit Planning Summit at the Sunseeker Resort for our special summit series. And as I was saying, I think that Joe's certainly a kind of a household name, and maybe bigger than ever, as he was just awarded yesterday the 2025 Exit Planner of the Year. So welcome to the show and congratulations.
Thanks, Scott. It's a delight to be here. It's an honor to have been named the Exit Planner of the Year.
Man.
It's still a little bit of a shock, but
that's what you were saying yesterday.
I'm grateful.
Well earned, and I would say the other thing, and why I call you that kind of household name, because you're a fast tracker, man. You came in hot after getting your SEPA, started one of our most successful chapters, have since transitioned that chapter to new leadership, which is always a major milestone in chapter success. There hasn't been many that have actually successfully done that. And I was laughing with you, I think, after you won your award, because fast tracker, meaning he won an award in 2022 or 23, 24, and now 25 and basically moving up from Member of the Year, which is community focused, to Thought Leader of the Year, which is more globally focused, to now the Exit Planner of the Year, which is certainly globally and community focused. And you're going to be our guy for the next year. So the folks that are listening in and watching our channel for the Exit Is Now podcast, we will learn a lot from you, and I think we already have. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to contributing, sharing, and continuing to grow the mission that you and your father have laid out, because it's something I truly believe in, and it's something I'm inspired by.
So we're also seeing our 2024 Exit Planner of the Year, Amy Wirtz, host our show. So you heard me this morning talk about, I think it's important that this truly becomes community-led and community-built. How are you feeling about taking over the MC role this time next year?
Yeah, I told her, I pulled her aside afterwards. I said, I'm already taking notes, Amy, on your style, your energy, and her focus. And so at least I have a year to prepare.
You do.
Give some thought to it, but I really appreciate it, and I think it's a great move that you have done on this, again, being more driven by the members.
Absolutely.
As part of it.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. And so Amy's still got like a day and a half left, and she's, I think, quite busy tomorrow as we're on the main stage almost all day on and off. So there's a few things I want to go through in a few minutes that we have in our special summit series here. I want to talk a little bit about the chapter, because that was, I think, a major milestone for you, and you've done it. You're one of the best at doing it.
Thank you.
I want to talk, of course, and I want to talk to you about being award-winning SEPA, right? You've won all three awards very in different ways. Like, what are some elements of success for some fellow advisors that you have? We'll round it out in 10 or so minutes.
Sure.
With a conversation around your new magazine. Is that fair to call it a magazine?
That'd be great. Yeah, it's a toolkit magazine.
A toolkit magazine. I could tell you from with two hats on, from a business owner mindset and then from a person that represents a bunch of advisors. I don't know who your target audience is, but it really speaks to both, which I love quite a bit. So let's start at the top.
Yeah.
Chapter was one of the first things that you did when you became a SEPA, and it seems from you're all the way across the country in California from my look in Cleveland, but in working with you and watching you build that, it seems like that was a kind of a key element to your success and maybe the firm's success as well. Can you talk to the impact of the chapter?
Yeah, I think it really was, in the sense that I can remember distinctly coming out of the 2019 summit, and Melissa Silverman, I was part of the LA chapter, and talking to her, and Los Angeles is such a big area, and I just felt the need for us to have a chapter out in the West Valley, the Westlake area where we are, to really take the message of value acceleration. There's a lot of great advisors that we were all sort of dealing with business owners, but to sort of galvanize us and to create that tight community right there. I mean, traffic's really bad in LA, and so
I was going to say, right?
And not everybody can make it to Melissa's chapter, which is awesome. So the idea of having a chapter, bringing the value acceleration methodology, talking about all the issues that are germane to owners, I felt like was just so important. But inadvertently going through that, it was like I had to create an actual leadership team, which were many of the same people that you would actually use in an actual exit. And sort of leading them, I think, helped me as a SEPA develop not only my leadership skills, but become more just naturally a thought leader, and raise and elevate myself within the community here nationally.
And how did the transition go? So I was saying, I think pre-show a little bit, there's not many chapters that have gone through significant leadership transitions.
Sure.
You see maybe different people serving in different boards or chapter leadership roles, but it's a big deal when one of our chapter presidents transition, but you transitioned to Mike and kind of left it internal, if you will, too. So it's with the same firm. But can you talk about that a little bit and maybe the why behind that?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Rudeau, who's my partner with our strategist offering, we're tackling business owners together on our planning. I brought him in about a year ago to sit on the leadership team. He wanted to get involved. He was already a CPA. He was doing great work. And it was made sense from a business standpoint to keep it in-house, like you said. Yeah, I've been serving in that capacity for 5 years, and he really shadowed me over the last 12 months, just in terms of how we do our leadership meetings, getting our events in on time, which is really important, how we deal with the membership issues, speakers, all of that. And then it really made for a smooth transition. Come January 1, he had already led a couple chapter events, had already presented case studies. He's just naturally a gifted speaker as it is, great leader. And then even throughout this year, I'm still on the board. I want to practice like what we preach, right? In terms of succession, even in a small way there, to make the organization more resilient. Yeah, absolutely. And it still remains one of the best chapters that we have, and I think that it's made a significant impact. So talking about impact, the last 3 years, you've won 3 awards, basically back to back to back to back, so you've got to really experience it all, right? So for our audience, there's 3 awards that we give out every year. There's a Member of the Year, which is really more community focused. It could be a chapter community. It could be an institution that you work within. But the focus of the Member of the Year is really somebody that brings people together, that's a collaborator and connector of people. Then you kind of step into the Thought Leader of the Year award. Thought Leader of the Year is really a global recognition of those that have the willingness to share their content with the world and share their best practices. And then the Exit Planner of the Year, which you won this year, is something that brings both of those together, but it really embraces all 3 best-in-class SEPA elements. And the best-in-class SEPAs that we have at EPI have an amazing ability to collaborate. They have a unique way that they've integrated the value acceleration language into how they talk and how they approach owners. And they're also lifelong learners. And truly, you embrace that, I think, throughout your career, but in the last 12 months, some significant moves that I think really led to you winning that award. So for many of our new SEPAs that listen to the show and look for best-in-class practices, like what are your, as now our Exit Planner of the Year, we're going to look into this a lot. Sure. Like what are some foundational insights you can give us to becoming best-in-class? Yeah, I think the first one, which you touched on, is this idea of continuous learning. I'm actually going through the Mergers and Acquisition Advisor class literally right now as we speak. And it's not so much because I want to hang those letters on my card or even really practice specifically in that domain. It's so that when I'm in front of a client and talking about just deal structure, things of this nature, I'm much more well-versed to be thoughtful in, the business broker we're selecting, the investment advisor, the transaction attorney, just better understand the deal structure. So my point is that there's so much knowledge in the exit planning world that you could study it for a lifetime, and I don't think you would ever really know it. So those who are coming into it, continuing to be hungry to evolve. I think one of and Amy's message separately was the idea of, and it's something you and your dad talk about, which is relentless execution, one foot in front of the other, and then continuing to learn and refine your process. I think it's so overwhelming when you first start that has to be that calling of like, I'm going to take the next step. I know what I know. There's an area that I may not know, but there's enough resources out there that I can pull on to bring in team, because exit planning is a team sport. Absolutely. Yeah. You've done it really well, man, and congratulations. Really cool to kind of watch it all unfold. And for people listening to our show, some of the perks of becoming the Exit Planner of the Year, which is basically, for lack of better words, it's the top SEPA inside of the community. We get to showcase your best-in-class elements. So again, a lot of new SEPAs here at the summit, a lot of new SEPAs coming into our community every year, always looking for people that they can model along the way. So I'm excited to kind of showcase your journey, because it's a little bit different than the journey of the 2024 Exit Planner of the Year, Amy Wertz, who kind of started down this journey of showcasing the Exit Planner of the Year and their best-in-class practices. One of the things that you've done really well and really embraces, I think, those best-in-class elements that led you to get the award is how you've done it at your firm, right? So
Can you talk about the strategist and
Sure.
all of that? And I want to lead into the magazine. I came home from a work trip, and on my desk there was a magazine.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, oh man, this is strong, right?
Yeah.
It's branded well. It's got great content, a lot of well-known contributors in there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that
Sure.
content piece as well, and perhaps how some folks get some access to it. But let's talk about the journey at your firm and how you said, look, okay, because you certainly have advanced your brand since becoming a SEPA. Can you talk to that a little bit?
So the idea behind the strategist, and really it was in conversations, I have to give credit to our chief operating officer, Stacy McKinnon, and even one of my partners, she's our partner and also our CEO. But the idea is, we have our typical traditional wealth management clients, and we do a great job servicing them on the financial planning and asset management. But we wanted, as the firm evolved, and it was about the time I got involved with SEPA and the Exit Planning Institute, how can we serve other clients who are not getting their needs met? And really the business owners it resonated because most financial advisors focus on post-liquidity asset management and planning at that point on. But we know the biggest impact is well before the transaction, and the fundamental disconnect is that historically our industry is billed by a percentage of assets under management.
Right.
That's a problem when other assets are in their business. And so why not come up with essentially a flat fee or consulting offering that takes many of the elements of exit planning, value acceleration methodology, and then I think one of my skill sets is my ability to network and pull in teammates. I've always had a strong network, but then SEPA has elevated it.
Sure.
And because exit planning is a team sport, that can be part of the value we're bringing to owners to then give them more time, let them focus on the business. We can help with creating and driving more value collectively together.
Totally.
And they're in a much better position to potentially have options to exit at some point on their own terms.
So are you both bringing in new clients to the firm and then servicing, I would assume, current clients as well, bringing them over to that line?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's done both for you?
It's done both.
Yeah, see, that's pretty cool too, because again, what I like the blend too, because it really embraces all three legs of the stool.
Yes.
Is that now you can kind of, and truly becoming the most valued advisor, you can truly look at and service a client in many ways. And then to your point, it's about connecting and collaborating. Are you doing the assessment? How deep into the discover gate, I guess, are you getting? Not to get too technical.
Yeah, no, I'll give Julie Keys some credit here and a few others, and some of it. We crafted, we kind of figured out with our clients is it's about a 3 to 4 page assessment that distills down the 8 functional areas of the business, some personal planning, and then some financial planning. Sure. And that usually will take Mike and I call it 4 to 4.5 hours with an owner and potentially some of their strategic management team. Then we will go back, we'll distill down our notes, and then we'll do a second follow-up meeting where we're actually whiteboarding with the owner. What are all the issues that came out of the first one? There's many of the things that really you and Scott taught us, or you and Chris taught us. And then we're coming up with 3 to 5. We're force ranking and eliminating things that you are, because a whiteboard is cluttered.
Oh, sure.
With,
I'm sure there's
15 things.
Yeah.
What are 3 or 4 personal items? What are 3 or 4 business items? Who's going to do them and how we're going to tackle them over the next 90 days? And then it's just starting to move. Now, at that point, really the decision is, do we bring in, is it something the client can handle on their own inside the business?
Right.
Can they delegate it? Do we need to bring in external resources like an EOS coach or another coach? So it's really, and then obviously the personal wealth planning and financial planning we can do in-house.
Yeah, you just keep in-house.
Yeah.
But then you are, so if it does need an advisor outside of the firm, you're making that connection for the owner as well.
I'll give you a real quick story.
Sure.
We helped with a second generation owner last year who he needed to elevate his business. He didn't have the skill set or time. He really didn't want to spend the money on a coach. We said, let's find an executive recruiter in our network who specializes in your industry. Let's go find a professional CEO. Let's get them in-house. And we were able to do that. We brought in a labor attorney to negotiate the contract. We structured a deal where actually, and this gentleman actually has experience exiting businesses. If he's able to grow the company by at least 50% and exit over the next 5 years, he'll get 20% of the delta over the valuation, which we coordinated as well. So it's kind of a crafty way of leveraging resources that met the owner where he was.
Absolutely right. Another masterful thing, we were talking about that earlier this morning when I went through the nuts and bolts of the value acceleration methodology. I think it's absolutely critical that after, as advisors, we know the methodology, we do meet the owner where they are. So I do think the methodology is universal, but I do think there's 40-year-old owners, 50-year-old owners, 60-year-old owners, different spots in their career, so on and so forth. So perhaps in closing here, talk to me about the magazine. Talk to me about the why behind it, because we just created a magazine called The Annual Exit. I can tell you it's a pretty big lift.
Yes, it is.
And yours is pretty bulky, honestly.
It is.
You got a lot of great content in there. So talk to me about it, and then share with the audience listening where can perhaps we find a copy of that.
Yeah, so this really came, we have basically 4 people in our marketing team, and I work very closely with Ivy Dyson, who is really the editor of it, and Mike does as well. And it was really her idea. It's something I had toyed around with in my head at one point, but really never took much action on. And it came out of the marketing retreat, talking about how do we elevate the strategist. And she really spearheaded the initial round of it, and then Mike and I got involved in crafting, okay, who are the people that were the experts? What are the domains that we need to focus on? And then what we really want to do, if you actually read it or you look at it front to back, it's actually the value acceleration methodology. It starts with valuation. It gets into the improvements in the business. It gets into the personal planning. It gets into the deal structure, the legal, and then actually life after the psychology, which is one of the things that actually I think is overlooked a lot, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Totally
and so the inspiration was really, how do we, not so much technical, but like really give a really like live roadmap to owners, so they could have a sense of like what they actually will go through potentially in an exit, beginning to end.
I love that. And what is it on your website?
No, we are distributing hard copies to the owners, to owners directly, to the content contributors. I'm not sure if we're going to actually post it on our website. We may, but certainly we can. If you hit me up on LinkedIn, I'm happy to send you a copy. I
would love that. Yeah. And so I would, if you do hit them on LinkedIn, it is definitely worth the read, and particularly for the business owners that listen to the Exit Is Now podcast. Something super simple yet very thorough that, to Joe's point, really takes you through discover, prepare, and decide. Through some of the exit options, some of the psychology exit, and I think gives you a very light, but again, thorough view of the exit planning process.
And it's meant to be timeless as well.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. It's not something you have to necessarily it's not something you have to reproduce, because it's all there. So. Yeah. Well, Joe, I appreciate you spending some time on the Exit Is Now podcast summit series. We will see Joe on the show. We'll have a full hour together later this year, so stay tuned to the show. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks.
As a certified exit planning advisor, you know every business exit is unique. But does your software slow you down? Tired of juggling spreadsheets, clunky project tools, or rigid software made from someone else's methods and processes? Meet Ella, a flexible, intuitive exit planning workbench built for trusted advisors. Ella helps you easily coordinate with your exit team, build business value over time, and create customized exit strategies tailored to each client. With Ella, trust, not transactions, drives advantageous exits. Design personal roadmaps to unlock client potential and strengthen your relationships. Ready to transform exit planning? Join the Ella waitlist today at exitwithella.io/exit is now and get 50% off your first 6 months.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exit Is Now podcast, our special edition summit series, sitting here on the main stage at the 2025 Exit Planning Summit, a big year as we celebrate 20 years of our profession and 10 years of this Exit Planning Summit. Sitting with our friend Rick. Rick runs the Utah chapter, and I gave Rick a smile when I just looked at him, because every time I see Rick now, I think about this awesome snowmobiling trip that he took us on. He is our 2025 Member of the Year. And though we had a good time and had some laughs on that snowmobile trip, I actually think it does go a little bit deeper, because it really does embrace, for me, what it does mean to be Member of the Year. There's 2, honestly, really cool moments. I probably haven't talked about this, so we're going to talk about it live on the podcast. There was, beyond just watching you work your chapter, you had an incredible leadership breakfast that we had, where as the leader of the group, as the chapter president, you kind of sat back and let them all have the conversation and drive. It was really cool. I don't know if you meant to do it that way or not, but it was really cool for you to step out of the spotlight as the chapter president and let the leaders talk through where they were going, what they like about the chapter, and collaborate together. You hosted a really, really cool fireside chat post-chapter meeting with your chapter members. And then we went on that snowmobiling trip with other chapter leaders. And so what really hits home for me is that one of my passions is creating unique experiences for individuals, and I think that if we can bring great individuals together, we can really start to have deeper relationships, and I think, frankly, just start to do more business to each other. So, congratulations and welcome officially to the Exit Is Now podcast, man.
Well, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And I'm just glad we didn't get you lost or hurt.
Yeah, or rolled over. Although I did get it stuck in that rut, and you guys had to come help me. Yeah, they were like going up and down hills. These guys that grew up snowmobiling, man, they definitely got some guts for sure. And it was a good time. Highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it. But nonetheless, let's talk about the chapter, because really, if you look at the member of the year, a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times, the nominees for that award are our chapter presidents, because you guys are really good at bringing people together and creating a sense of community. Another big thing, if you looked over the past 12 months of Rick running the chapter, is there's a moment online that you made a video and you had to really crack down the air wall to expand by 2 or 3 rows, because you quite literally have ran out of space. So can you talk to me about the years that you've been running the chapter, and give us some advice as SEPA start to integrate into chapters around the country?
Yeah, so that was a big day for me, opening up the air wall. Yeah. Because when I started the chapter, Scott, I figured that I had 3 friends at least that I could coax to coming to the meetings, right? And I'm like, hey, worst case scenario, we've got lunch for 30. At least I'll have 3, and we'll have plenty of leftovers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I'm like, so the whole chapter started as a dream. I wrote a book a while ago called Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default.
Exactly.
Because having sold businesses for 15 years now, I realized you've got to start planning for that exit early.
Absolutely.
And when I found EPI, I'm like, hey, these are my people. This is my tribe.
Yeah, you found it finally.
Yeah, I found it, or you found me. I don't remember which, but your
point,
phone was blowing up, because I'm like, I got to talk to Scott. This resonates with me. This is what we need. This is what business owners need. And so the only reason I started a chapter is there wasn't one in my area. I went and visited the Denver chapter, and the guys are like, gee, Rick, aren't there businesses over in Denver? You know,
or in Salt Lake?
Yeah, or in Salt Lake. I'm in Denver, and I'm like, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm not the dullest either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, duh, we need something in Utah. Mm-hmm. So it started with that. I came back to Utah, and I'm like, well, who do I know? What can I do to get the chapter going? And so I started going to lunch. I should weigh 300 pounds. I'm a skinny guy, but I ought to weigh 300 pounds.
It's all that snowmobiling that you're doing, man. You know, that hiking and snowmobiling.
Shoveling that snow.
Shoveling the snow out there in Salt Lake City.
So I'm like, I've got to do something. And I just started reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, I'm an M&A advisor. I need an attorney. I need an M&A attorney. I need a CPA. I wanted 4 different people from 4 different disciplines to be part of my leadership. So I found the people just on LinkedIn and referrals, and I started taking people to lunch and explaining the dream. And those people that caught the vision with me, that's who I made my leaders. So there were 4 of us, and I said, okay, guys, we're going to do this. Got them all excited. I'm like, well, you're going to have to pay a little money to do it. And they were fine, because they were engaged. Yeah. And those 4 pillars are the ones that really started the chapter. And what we did is, because they were influential people, they were professionals, they had a big Rolodex. So I said, okay, guys, we got to put together an email list of a couple hundred people each. Yeah, right. And so they did that. And we just started inviting people. And so I was amazed, first of all, in fact, you speak about the time when we had the chapter launch. I was amazed at how many people showed up, right? But you were in heaven. Remember, it was so hot, we turned the fans on.
Real quick for our audience listening. So there's definitely been some unique chapter launches. But the Salt Lake City chapter launch was at this like really beautiful restaurant, but outside they had like a greenhouse almost. That was an outdoor dining space, but I think it was more greenhouse than it was dining. But he packed that room, totally sold out, standing room only. But if you can imagine, right, it's like greenhouse setting. So there's all these wonderful plants everywhere, but it's like really hot and humid. You had that big fan blowing in the back.
It was kind of
I knew then that you were onto something, because quite literally, that room was absolutely packed.
It was standing room only in that room.
It was.
And I got excited because the rest of Utah got excited, right? Yeah. I thought I was the only one at first. Yeah. But what I discovered was that there's a lot of people thinking about exit planning. Business owners, financial advisors. I mean, at this summit, it's a perfect example. Last year we had 12 people here. This year we have 107.
107 people from your chapter here
from
at the
Utah.
summit?
Well,
or from Utah. Right.
Half of them I don't even know.
Yeah, isn't that incredible too?
Yeah, it's like this is people are catching the vision of exit planning, and it's a thing now. It's a revolution across the country.
So let me ask you this: are you looking at the registration list, looking at the 107 that are Utah-based, and are you reaching out to them saying, "Hey, like I'm Rick"? Yeah,
absolutely.
See? And this is why he's the member of the year, right? Like
people. We already have actually.
That's what I'm saying. See, so a lot. I was saying to Joe on who also is who's the exit planner of the year, and I was talking about collaboration and the connecting of people. And during during my breakout session here this morning, people started to ask about how do we better collaborate, how do we team build. There's certainly some technique and some relationship building in there, and I think some intentional focus, but there's also some low-hanging fruit. Like I don't think there's many people that are that deliberate, Rick, and looking at the summit attendee list, looking at the 107 that are in your home state, and saying, "Hey, I'm a chapter president here in the Salt Lake City chapter, would love to connect." I mean, are you getting responses and good responses?
I am.
See?
We're taking the chapter members to dinner tonight.
Yeah, see, very deliberate and thoughtful.
Yeah, the Utah contingency. And then the other people, we're inviting them to the meetings, because I don't know them. They probably have not been attending the meetings, but they're low-hanging fruit for future chapter members, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they, on their own initiative, on their own dollar, are paying their way to get here. And so definitely, I've reached out to every single one of them, and we're getting good responses, and I'm like inviting to the chapter meetings. They'll be on the future. We do a list every month, right? We invite them out. And so I would say, I'd like to just say something to the audience. So new SEPAs, I talk to a lot of new SEPAs all around the country.
I'm sure.
And I would say that one of the single best things that you can do is to get involved in a chapter as a SEPA. You know, this is once a year, and it's a wonderful event, but it's not enough. You need to be on a monthly basis with other SEPAs, figuring it out. What are you going to do? What is your role? How are you going to play it? How do you talk to business owner clients, right? Yeah. And the best way to figure it out is by developing these relationships, and the best relationships are in these chapters.
I can tell you, when my dad in 2011 started the first ever Exit Planning Institute chapter, he did it for that, right? Is that rather than this one-on-one traditional lunch, breakfast, cocktail, dinner, he was like, man, I need to know more people in Cleveland, and I need to round out my exit planning team. Yeah. How do we do that? And we started talking about doing a chapter. And back then, right, like Rich and Pete, the founders of EPI, didn't have a framework for a chapter. They just kind of allowed Dad to go out and make it happen. And trustworthy guy, he's pretty involved. Yeah, if you want to start an EPI Cleveland chapter, tell me what that looks like, and let's go make it happen. But it was a great way to go one to many and meet really great people and bring together really great people that you can also do business with. So I think that we come to the chapters to learn and grow together, but at the same time, I do think at some point it's got to start returning. And I do think the chapter has returned for you, don't you think? Like,
absolutely.
And how have you made that next step? Is that natural because of the relationships you're building? They just want to start to work with you and do more?
Yeah, so our chapter is designed to be educational, it's not a place for referrals, it's not a BNI, and those are good organizations, right? Yeah. But that's all about getting business. Okay. We're about education, and we're about collaboration, and it's just natural to do business with these people in the chapter. It's interesting, we're working on a transaction right now, and I represent the sellers, and we have the chapter one of the chapter leaders who is the sell side attorney for it. And the buyers asked me, well, which attorney should I use? So I referred the buyers to another attorney from our chapter. So we have the two attorneys in our chapter are on one transaction. But that works well because they know each other already. They have a working relationship, and it helps deals get done, and it represents the clients in a professional manner, and I love that.
Yeah, I remember, too, going back to 2011, my dad running that chapter. He did, too. He started referring work to, I think, almost always, or maybe only, people that are within the chapter.
Yep.
Excuse me. People that are within the chapter. So it was a little weird for Dad's group of friends, right? Because they're like, you're not going to refer me work because I'm not in the chapter. He was like, well, we have equally high-quality folks that all now collaborate and understand the value acceleration methodology. So, you know, it's just more natural to work with those that are really invested.
Yep. And the SEPA designation is really important because people that have taken time to get their SEPA understand the process. They're speaking the same language. They know what it means. They know what a triggering event means. They know what value acceleration or drive value means now, right?
Yeah.
And they're speaking the same language to the client, and the client is going, oh, okay, they're part of the team, and they recognize that. And I think that SEPA designation is going to be more important as we go on, and the clients are going to recognize that as a level of professionalism, and they're going to be attracted to that.
Yeah. So what do you think? We're sitting here in 20 years of a profession. What's the next 20 look like? How do you think it shapes out?
Well, I listened to your dad this morning at breakfast. I think that we're going to triple the number of transactions that we do in the next 5 years compared to what we're doing right now.
Wow. Yeah. That's a big lift.
Think about that and what that means to the advisor. So it's not a matter of how much pie do I get. It's a matter of how do I take care of this wave of people that's going to come my way. And the people that are SEPAs, the people that have their exit planning team assembled, are ready to handle that business. They're not going to be scrambling when they get more business than they can handle. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to have more business than we can handle, all of us in the community, and we just need to prepare for it now.
And I think it's going to be sustained, because the Gen Xers are I think those boomerang exits, right? They're going to sell and then do something again, run another 10 or 12 years, sell that, and do it again and again and again. You feel that same way?
Oh yeah, I feel that same way, big time. They look at it differently. For the baby boomers, this is a once in a lifetime event. Yeah. For Gen Xers, it's a 2, 3, 4 times in fact, they have multiple businesses and they want to exit. They're smarter. Their thinking is different on the exit, and the way that they build, I think they approach it more from a logical standpoint than less from an emotional standpoint. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to work with those people.
I do. I think it's going to be, and I think if you can do the stuff as a certified exit planning advisor that we teach, you really harness being the most valued advisor. So you will take that ride with a business owner, right?
Absolutely.
Which is, I think, really changing in our market. To your point, a lot of the advisors that are transactional, they're going to have a transaction eventually with a baby boomer business owner. But with a guy that's 35, 45, maybe even 55, if you have built a relationship with that owner, you're likely going to do it again and again and again. And I just think that it's a little bit different way for us to prepare as professional advisors, kind of harness that opportunity.
Yep. Let me share something with you that I'm seeing now.
Yeah.
With the financial advisor, when they're getting ready to look, when they're looking forward to a future liquidity event, right, and investing that money, increasing their AUMs, one of the things that we're doing is if they can start talking about exit planning at the very beginning, they can start building that relationship with the business owners. And here's an example of what we've done recently. So we have a lot of C Corps out there, and a lot of business owners are sitting on C Corps or LLCs, and they're leaving money in the business.
Yeah.
Right? And I had one the other day, $1 million they left in the business. They like it's a cushion. And they've already paid taxes on it. It doesn't make sense. But the business owners like to leave it in. But it doesn't make sense to leave it in because it becomes part of the working capital calculation, and that money becomes negotiable. And oftentimes they'll leave that money in and lose it, right?
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so what we tell them when we go in and we do the triggering event, we do the evaluation, we look at it and go, okay, Mr. Business Owner, we see that you have excess cash in your business. Let's get it out now. Okay, well, let's invest it with the financial advisor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Let's put it with them. And so they get in early, and that's a little bit of the pie that they're going to get later on. So, okay, well, let's invest with them. Then they start building that relationship early on with them. And then 12 months, 24, 36 months later, when they're ready to exit, they're already that person. They're already the trusted advisor. And so when they sell for $10 million, instead of $500,000 in AUMs, they're going to bring in the $10 million liquidity event because they've built that relationship capital from the very beginning with that client.
That is great advice from our member of the year, man. I really appreciate that. Well, we're out of time on our special series here, so I really appreciate you hanging out at the Exit Planning Summit. Appreciate your dedication to the profession. And look them up, hit them up on LinkedIn, look at our chapter in Utah. You guys will enjoy. Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Scott, for having me.
Thanks.
Are you a business owner seeking to unlock the true potential of your enterprise? Look no further than the second edition of Christopher Snider's revolutionary book, Walking to Destiny: 11 Actions an Owner Must Take to Rapidly Grow Value and Unlock Wealth. In this updated edition, Snider presents proven strategies for maximizing your company's value and accelerating growth. Whether you're aiming to sell or simply want to ensure long-term success, this book offers a blueprint for building a thriving, self-sustaining business. Walking to Destiny isn't just another book, it's a game changer. backed by Snider's own experience as a successful business owner and as a SEPA. This book bridges the gap between business owners and advisors, guiding you towards financial freedom. But don't just take our word for it. Hear from those whose lives have been transformed by its insights. One satisfied reader raves, "The best guide for transitioning out of privately owned companies. I recommend it to all business owners and advisors." Another praises it on its focus for maximizing business value, calling it their, quote, principal tool for educating owners. Ready to take control of your business's destiny? Visit walkingtodestiny.com now and use code EXITISNOW to claim your free copy of Walking to Destiny, 11 actions an owner must take to rapidly grow value and unlock wealth. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Make the moment perfect by seizing this opportunity today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Exit is Now podcast. We've been hanging out with special guests here at the 2025 Exit Planning Summit, a special year because we're celebrating two kind of big anniversaries. We're celebrating the 10th anniversary of our Exit Planning Summit and the 20th anniversary of the founding of EPI. And I have Rich Jackim here with me on the show, which is kind of wild, right? I don't think I've seen you for at least maybe 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
But you heard me talk about it this morning. I think it's really meaningful. I think a lot of people celebrate 20 years of a company. And I think really cool, right? You heard me mention this morning, like something like 21% of companies,
right?
Only 21% of companies actually make it to their 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
So I do think it's an achievement. But when you and Pete started what you did, you weren't like manufacturing baseball bats and competing with a bunch of people that have baseball bats, right? You quite literally kind of rolled the dice and started a whole organization that, as you see today with nearly 1,000 people here, have truly affected a lot of life. So welcome to the show, and thanks for spending some time, man.
Thank you, yeah.
So you got to tell me about, because I don't even, when I first met you, I was a pretty young man, right? So
you were in your 20s, yeah.
I was pretty young, and I was just out of the landscaping company, right?
I'd forgotten about that.
Right?
Yeah,
the landscaping company. So I was nowhere near the professional advisory space.
Right.
So can you take me back like 2003, 2004, 2005? You and Pete were working together though, right? As like investment bankers for the Chrisman Group?
We had literally met a few years before that.
Okay.
But we had this common vision about the need for business brokers and business advisors to be more proactive about helping their clients actually figure out how to exit their businesses. Because at the firm that I was with before Peter and I created the Chrisman Group, we used to do exit surveys with our clients. And that's where the 70% number of business owners who were unhappy with selling their businesses came up. And we were astonished by that because we thought we had done a great job, and to realize that 70% of your clients were unhappy when you thought you were doing a great job, that was an eye-opening experience. So we took a step back, and Peter and I said, well, how can we be doing better? And so we came up with this notion of exit planning. And literally nobody knew what we were talking about.
I mean, people still today struggle with, okay, I'm not going to exit now. It's something I should do later. So I can only imagine 2003, 4, and 5, they're like, what are you talking about, Rich?
Yeah, well, and I think you made a comment about, if you did a Google search back when we started Exit Planning Institute, it was all about how do you plan to get out of the Gulf War. It was all about military exit strategies. It wasn't about business exit strategies. And so Peter and I quickly discovered that we were going to have to be pioneers and educators as a part of our networking efforts to really teach people how we were different from the guy down the street. And Peter wasn't much of a writer, but he said, Rich, you like to write, so why don't you write a book? And I did. And we used to give it away as a lead generation tool to referral sources. And they would call back and say, hey, could I get 2 or 3 more copies? I want to hand these out to partners in my firm or to clients or whatever. And so we decided, let's put it on Amazon and see if we could sell a couple of copies. And it became an Amazon bestseller the year that...
I know, right?
So we started getting all of these inbound calls from people saying, boy, I'd love to learn how to do exit planning in my law practice or my CPA practice.
Really? Can
we follow you around for a couple of days? Yeah. And we said, nah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But we had somebody, one of our first sort of members,
suggest that we just rent a conference room and we spend a day with them talking about exit planning and what we're doing and brainstorming and
teaching what's in your book, the $10 trillion opportunity.
Exactly, going through the book and saying, answering their questions essentially. And so at the end of that, 3 members came to us and said, I think you really have something here. Let's create an exit planning institute. And so
wild.
I thought
you did.
I thought that was crazy.
You did, yeah.
But then we did, yeah. And I researched how do you start an educational business? How do you get certified to provide continuing education credits? And luckily we got the CPA Association at the state and national level to recognize us first for CPE credits, and then it just took off from there. And it became so popular that we ended up having to hire professional management. You met
remember Dennis
Gano, the first executive director.
Yep.
And so for what was literally a side hustle for us that was supposed to be a lead generation tool, really took on a life of its own. And we are today, 20 years later.
I know, isn't that wild? Like when me and Dad became a SEPA, he was certificate number 93.
Yeah.
So you're approaching that 100th SEPA. You have like an active membership, and even with 100 people, like you have 100 people that need stuff and look for benefits and want your advice and want a phone call. And I just remember like how entrepreneurial the whole organization felt when I came in what would have been 2011. I think I was telling you maybe at one of the socials. So we had this 20th anniversary video. Did you see that video?
I missed it. I came in just at the end of it.
We'll have to send it
I'd
to
love
you
to see that.
so
That would
you
be
could
fun.
see this thing. I went down a rabbit hole looking for pictures and videos that the team could use to kind of embrace some of the stuff that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And right before Peter passed, he did an interview with me, and then he hit me with like a Dropbox folder. I don't use Dropbox at all. We have like OneDrive at EPI. And it just dawned on me. I was like, oh, I think Pete has this old file. And so I looked, and there's like you and Pete and my dad standing on stage. There's a bunch of really cool pictures. And so what has your summit, I kind of set that up because what has your summit experience been like over the last 48 hours, right? Like you went from 120 members and 60 to 80 people at the kind of original exit planning summit to, it's got to be a little overwhelming, honestly, like to now 1,000 people all look over and go, oh my gosh, that's the guy that rolled the dice and said, we just started surveying some people and here we are today.
It really is. It's a phenomenal experience, and thank you for inviting me to come back and experience it. It's really like a parent, giving birth to a child and then raising them the best you can and sending them out in the world and hoping for the best. And to literally see them succeed and be so successful and having such an impact on other people's lives, it makes me very proud. So,
thank you.
Yeah. No,
so talk to me a little bit about the designations. You have the book, The $10 Trillion Opportunity.
Yeah.
You had that guy that you mentioned, like, hey, just run a conference room. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
For a day, maybe you could educate me and my firm to developing like a full-blown credential. Because I don't know what it was like originally. Maybe you could shed some light on that. But by the time Dad became a SEPA, which was only 3 classes, right? He was in the 3rd class that you ever hosted.
No, we had 2 classes a year.
2 classes a year, but did you start with 1? So 2007.
We started with 1, and then we went to
8.
2.
Yeah, so he was in the 3rd, so 2007 fall, spring 2008. Dad came in fall 2008.
Okay.
But you had like a dozen faculty members in a full-blown program for them relatively rapidly. Do you remember like sitting down and created that? So I ask because your business partner, Pete, I think you guys have very different personalities, right?
Right.
So he
was the sales guy.
He's the sales guy.
Loved to be out meeting with people and talking and shaking hands. Yeah. And Pete used to joke that he would never eat alone. He would always sit with somebody. And, even at a restaurant, if he was there, he would just ask somebody if he could sit with them and chat with them. So Pete was definitely Mr. Outside. I was Mr. Inside. So
So did you have a hand then in really creating that curriculum? It seems right up your alley.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. I developed the whole curriculum. I did all the research, and I reached out to all the different professional associations to figure out how we qualify for continuing education credits. And Peter then went out and sold it. Peter went to all of our referral sources and people in the community and said, hey, we were talking about building this referral network. Now we're building a credential. Yeah. Would you be interested in sending some of your employees? And it started slowly, and then we met you guys, and then we literally started talking about exit planning ourselves, because there was the pretty big generational gap between Peter and me.
Yeah.
Peter was in his 70s, I was in my early 50s, and we were both 50-50 partners. And you have different goals when you're at different stages in your life. And so, like a good exit planner, we started asking ourselves, what's the future of this organization going to look like? And we concluded that it was probably better off in somebody else's hands. And so, coincidentally, your dad contacted us and said, if you ever think about selling, and we're like, hey, we were just talking about that.
Right? Dad was super passionate about it. So I remember it was like, we started those conversations, I think, like summer of 2012. And so now I'm fully integrated to his company, Snider Management, where he was an active SEPA doing mostly value growth, but doing some M&A stuff as well. And I remember him saying, like, hey, Rich and Pete, we're pretty close to you guys, right? Because Dad was like helping chair your conferences, and you guys had really welcomed him into the fold.
Yeah, he embraced the whole concept away.
Right? I always found it really fascinating. The three of you, Dad, and Pete, from the outside, really looked like a really cool team. And Dad said, hey, I think they want to sell EPI. And I said, oh, that's interesting, because Dad, you love writing, speaking, and teaching. And at the time, to be totally honest with you, I don't know if I knew back then how big this organization could be.
I don't think any of us really appreciated that.
I think we did it because Dad was passionate about teaching others, and he really wanted like a publishing arm so he can go out and write a book. And so we approached you and worked a deal, and it was October of 2012. I don't know if you remember this story.
I do, yeah.
So Dad and you were like going back and forth like you do in an M&A transaction, right? Like totally healthy back and forth. And I remember looking at Dad, and he would tell you the story too, and I said, Dad, he lives in Chicago. Why don't we just get in the car, and Rich is a reasonable guy. Let's just sit down and talk through it like in person. None of this email and back and forth. Let's just go to Chicago. We love Chicago, so let's go meet him. And we did, and I honestly think we like basically had I guess like a letter of intent, or maybe even like almost the forming of a purchase agreement the day that we left. And I always remember that. It was like very profound experience for me.
Yeah, no, that's the art of the deal, right? The art of the deal is really sitting down and understanding each party's goals and objectives and figuring out how we address them all so they come up with a solution that fits everybody's needs. And I think you're right, it's much easier to do that in person than it is by email or over the phone. Yeah,
and so, I don't know, I'll tell you a funny story, you probably don't know this. And so, Dad, after we bought the business, remember you had your offices, but Dennis Gano was running it out of his bedroom at his home, right? Like he had like a bedroom office. And that's what we did too.
Separate address, right?
Separate address. But, when we go in, we're like, okay, me and Dad had never bought a business, right? He started a Snider Management, and I started my landscaping company, so we're fine with startups.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, this is a living and breathing organization. It's got an executive director. He has a home office. I need you to go to the office and learn the business.
Yeah.
And I didn't know he was working out of his home. So I show up, and I'm like, I am in a home development, like a subdivision.
Yeah, right.
And Dennis was super personal, like waving to me as I pulled up my rental car that I could barely rent, right? Because you got to be like 25 to rent this thing. And sure enough, I'm like, so Dennis, are we gonna go to the EPI office? He's like, no, it's upstairs. My kids are grown out of the office. Yeah. And I spent 10 straight days commuting back and forth from his home, going through like files and learning the business. We spent a day on marketing. We spent a ton of time on learning the program, on managing a program. He was masterful at CE management. That was a whole new world. But I don't know if you knew that. I spent 10 days.
I didn't know it was 10 days. But
commuting back and forth to his home, just me and Dennis. I met his wife. It was like we had dinner a couple times, just came down from the office and sat around the table. It was a really cool, and honestly, a really cool experience. So. I got to ask you about the next 20 years, right? So you're still an active advisor here in the community, and I think that it would be interesting to see. We're here celebrating the 20 years of exit planning, not just the 20 years of EPI, but then we're going to flash another 20. And I think the stuff that you wrote in the $10 trillion opportunity is finally here in a big way, right? We talked about this tsunami of businesses coming to market driven really by the baby boomers. And though I think we've seen it trickle through the few years, and but now it's here. Like 57% of owners want to exit, and baby boomers want to exit in the next 5. They are ripe for the age group, right? Like my dad fit 65, 66 years old. Like they're starting to think about what that looks like. So where do you think we're going from here as you see everybody at the summit and as the founder of this profession? What's the next 20 look like?
Well, the good news is that now I'm getting inbound calls from prospects saying, I want to start my exit plan. So it's becoming part of a business owner's vocabulary. So that's encouraging. And I think the other thing that's encouraging is the more people that I continue to meet as part of my networking efforts in the financial planning community, I start seeing the SEPA designation all over the place. Places like Merrill Lynch and UBS and places that used to sort of poo-poo the designation when we first started it, saying it's not really credible, that kind of thing. And to now see these major firms saying, oh, I think you should go get a SEPA designation if you're going to be working with business advisors. That's astonishing to me that, in 20 years you guys have been able to do that. Those are big doors to open. So I think, quite frankly, that given the huge need and given the opportunity that there is and the amount of money that's going to change hands, there's going to be a need for the SEPA designation to eventually become equivalent to a CFP. And, thinking with my merger and acquisitions hat, I could easily see a CFP organization wanting to acquire EPI at some point in the future.
And bring it into the fold of
as a
larger,
part of their program,
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility, but I totally agree with you. We do get some inbound calls from business owners too saying, hey, and they're a little, like, not skittish maybe, they're like, hey, I think I should be calling you, like, we saw your research or we listened to the podcast or we saw an article that you wrote, and I think I should be doing this. Or I'm in a family business with my dad, and I know that you're in a business with your dad, Scott, so like, can you shed some light on this? Should I be working with one of your SEPAs? And so, I think, really the last like 24 months, we have seen more intake from business owners. That's why we rolled out that drivevalue.com brand to say, okay, let's take these original concepts, again, marry them with the stuff that my dad did and take that whole message out to the business owner so that you can have highly educated owners working with our highly educated SEPAs at the same time and kind of marrying both communities together. But I'll tell you, Rich, it really feels like starting from ground zero again with the drive value stuff, right? It's like Dad's looking at me and is like, are we rolling out another business? And I'm like, maybe, I don't know.
Well, in some ways, it's a natural extension of EPI because I'll be honest with you, when we started EPI, the idea was that I would run EPI because it was more of a technical, professional kind of education company. And Pete would run the business side, the business owner side of EPI with what we called business owner forums. They were going to be these kind of round table events where you'd invite former business owners in to network with existing business owners and share their experiences about exiting. And so that was all part of the plan. And now to see you guys taking that again 20 years later and doing it, it's great.
We'll have to call you in 20 years when Drive Value becomes really the central hub for everything. Exit planning and value acceleration. We'll celebrate that 20th anniversary. Well, you can share that original story because we do have like the business owner forums that our chapters do. Now they're small regional style of events. But I do. Pete used to talk about that too, like having like a business owner university type concept. But that's pretty cool to see.
And it's a perfect member benefit as well for EPI members. If you can develop business owners who are interested in exit planning and then introduce them to your members who provide those services, that's a great way for you guys to really demonstrate value to your members.
Well, Rich, we're out of time in our summit series, man. I could sit here all day. I could sit here all day. I might have to have you next into Cleveland if you haven't been overwhelmed enough here.
I'd love to see the new offices sometime.
Oh, man, the 16,000 square feet is a lot different than Dennis's home office.
It looks like Google headquarters.
Man, well, thank you for coming and hanging out on the Exit Is Now podcast. You guys stay tuned. We have more special guests coming up. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.